viewers of this program will remember that back in, gosh, I don't even remember when it was. I know we played it for a best of, but we had Stuart Stevens on. Stuart Stevens, a former Mitt Romney campaign manager, a member of the Lincoln Project, of the members of the Lincoln Project. He had written the book of that was considered the most, I guess, contrite. And I had I wouldn't call it a contentious interview. Would you guys call it a contentious interview?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I guess it was a contentious interview. But at one point, I think I remember saying, so you guys are basically mercenaries. That's what you're telling me. And he said, well, look, if we were mercenaries, we would have gone for the money. We could have made millions of dollars with Donald Trump if we wanted to. And instead, we've done this. Well, it turns out that...
a few years later.
Well, except for it was really a couple of weeks later.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, this is really just more like a couple of months later. Yeah, no, this is... according to the New York Times, inside the Lincoln Project secrets, Mr. Schmidt, Steve Schmidt, who incidentally made a ton of cash. I've heard different numbers. Don't know how far it went with Howard Schultz run, who... really threatened, perhaps, providing Donald Trump with another term.
And made a ton of cash, basically grifting off of trying to remove himself from picking Sarah Palin and all of the immoral practices there.
Mr. Schmidt and the three other men who started the Lincoln Project, John Weaver, Reed Gallen, and Rick Wilson, had already quietly moved to set themselves up in a new enterprise. This is in the course of raising $87 million. Studies have shown that their work did nothing but...
And went more towards overhead than other similar organizations.
Whoa. I'll tell you where the money went.
Yeah.
Drafting and filing papers to create TLP Media in September and October, records show. September and October. Its aim was to transform the original project, a super PAC, into a far more lucrative venture under their control. This was not the only private financial arrangement among the four men. Shortly after they created the group in late 2019, they agreed to pay themselves millions of dollars in management fees. Three people of the knowledge the deal said. Here's amazing. Over the time, the Lincoln Project directed about $27 million, nearly a third of its total fundraising, to Mr. Gallen's consulting firm from which the four men were paid. I mean, we told you, they're grifters. They're grifters. That is what a grift is. 1/3 of the money paid to four men, $30 million nearly, that was contributed ostensibly to beat Donald Trump. That's all our time for today. We'll leave you on that note. And for those of you sticking around, can you effing believe it?
I absolutely can. I remember calling them out at the time.
No, but I mean, $30 million.
I can believe it.
I knew they were making, I was like, yeah, these guys are making like $2 million each. And now it's literally closer to like $6-7 million each minimum. I mean, imagine what the knock-on effects of this are. My mind is blown, man.
And they just stole from liberals who wanted emotional releases by ads.
We talk about going undercover as a right winger. Maybe for 2024, you go undercover as a centrist liberal, never Trumper.
Yeah. You have to be a right winger first.
You have to be a right winger first. I mean, that's
right, damn.
The whole scam, right? I mean, that's the whole scam.
Yeah, you can't take shortcuts in this business, Matt, of going undercover.
And I'll tell you, my experience at Air America, the first iteration, first year, where, well, not the first year, like the first 6 months, we had so many different owners. There was a guy, and I don't want to say too much because he may be litigious, but I can say this. I know at one point he was arrested in Guam. So, for doing shady stuff. And this dude was pretending that he had a ton of money. and that he had raised, and we had checks that bounced. Like there was like early on, like thousands of dollars of checks bouncing for Janine and I. And we were both like, I was coming from show business. I had made a lot of money, and I was like, whatever, it's fine. Like we were doing it for other reasons. I was like, eventually I'd like to get paid, but I mean, I understand it. And, he wasn't saying like, oh, I'm bouncing the checks because I don't really have the money. He was saying like, oh, we had accounting
We had a
problem.
snafu,
Yeah, whatever. And at one point, like people started getting a little bit upset. Like, hey man, you keep saying you're bouncing checks. And at one point, like he was trying to prove to somebody that he had paid checks, and so he stuffed an envelope full of supposedly receipts and sent one of the guys over to give it to one of the people who were talent there. And they opened up the envelope, and it was just random newspaper clippings. It was like the old, like when I first came to New York, maybe actually this is in the 80s. It was in the 80s. You were walking down the street, and some dude would come up to you and go like, hey man, you want to buy this VCR?
Yeah.
Brand new VCR. And it was wrapped in, like, they would shrink wrap it. And you put your hand in the slot where the VCR is. That was how they proved it was real. And it turned out just to be a box with like a slot, like, and like waited to, and this was sort of the same scam. But the thing I noticed is that the people working there, the people working under the fraudster, were all sort of yes people. And that's who he surrounded himself with. People who he would just say like, yeah, whatever you want to do, go ahead. He would yes them too, because then they would never question him. And the people who left, like there was a guy who left like within like a week. And I was like, God, what a jerk. Why would you leave this? And of course he didn't want to say anything because he could have gotten in trouble, but it was because he realized there's something seriously wrong here and I don't want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
But that's the sense that you get like at
the Lincoln Project.
At the Lincoln Project.
Yeah.
You get the sense that like, anybody who stuck around in there.
It's a saran wrapped box that's weighted to be a VCR.
And the people who are like, still there are people who sit back and go like, I got one just like this, a guy off the street. It was great. It was a great deal. You should get this VCR.
Yeah.
Man, back in the day, like a VCR. Jeez. All right, folks.